We're following breaking news tonight in the January 6th investigation. The Washington Post reports that the Justice Department is looking into the former president's actions as part of a criminal probe, according to 4 people familiar. According to the Post, quote, prosecutors who are questioning witnesses before a grand jury, including 2 top aides of Vice President Mike Pence, have asked in recent days about conversations with Trump, his lawyers, and others in his inner circle who sought to substitute Trump allies for certified electors. From some states, Joe Biden won, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. In addition, Justice Department investigators in April received phone records of key officials and aides in the Trump administration, including his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Paul Butler is back with me. Okay, so we had to call an audible here, Paul. I'm of 2 minds about this, so you help me out here. Talk to me like I'm 6. There's a part of me that's saying, well, okay, isn't this what they were doing all along? And there's another part of me that's saying, well, wait a minute, if they're asking for phone records, then maybe we've seen some progress between now and maybe even the A block when you and I talked before. So how should we take this new report? Is this something new, or is this just basically Merrick Garland acknowledging something that we assumed was happening all along?
Jason, the stakes just got way higher. Donald Trump may now be the subject of a federal grand jury investigation. Now, that's different from being a target. Criminal charges are not imminent, but the grand jury is actively investigating Trump's criminal conduct. This is historic.
So now they've got grand juries, now that they're investigating him for direct criminal conduct, so as you said, this is lighting the candle, lighting the giant, bomb. Okay, it's sizzling. Does that mean that we could see something in the next 18 months? Does that mean that, by the time you are able to have this information leaked out, does that mean that you're rounding the curve, or does that mean this is likely just beginning?
We have no idea, because the Department of Justice just doesn't talk about its pace, which appeared until really this week to be extremely slow, and now it seems much faster paced. Jason, I think the Justice Department is interested in 2 different kinds of crime. So one is the violence and blood that we associate with Insurrection Day, January 6th. And we know that one of these witnesses, Mark Short, warned the Secret Service that Mike Pence was in danger because Donald Trump was going to turn on him. So think of crimes like sedition and incitement that these new witnesses are being questioned on. But both these witnesses were also at that wacko meeting at the Oval Office where Trump leaned hard on Pence to stop the vote certification. And that raises crimes like conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to impede congressional investigation. So I think this is encouraging news for people who want Trump to be brought to justice.
Joining me now on the phone is Carol Leonnig of the Washington Post. Carol, thank you so much for joining us tonight with this breaking news. So I have to ask you, you're going to have the people who are sort of the Merrick Garland supporters. They're like, aha, we told you all along. This is what was happening. You'll have the other side to say, hey, this might be a result of pressure from Congress and the January 6th committee and commentators and everything else like that. Where would you place this breaking news? Is this a reflection of pressure? Is the DOJ saying, yeah, hey, everybody, get off our back, we're doing this? Or is this a reflection of, sort of the ongoing process and we should have trusted Merrick Garland all along?
I like to deal in facts, and the facts that we discovered, my great colleagues and I at the Washington Post, are as follows. That starting relatively slowly, the Department of Justice began eyeing Team Trump and eyeing Trump himself and his actions. And when I say slowly, remember, January 6th and the effort to overturn the election results of 2020 began in November of 2020 and continued to January 2021. And the first sign we can discover of the Justice Department really swinging their microscope towards Team Trump is at the beginning in the first months of this year. What we also know, though, is the January 6th committee hearings definitely accelerated some things, but it wasn't the reason that the Justice Department began looking at Team Trump. They sought and obtained in late April phone records for many Trump White House officials, going all the way up to former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. And so even in April, before any hearings had begun, here the Justice Department was sifting through key communications to piece together the roadmap of how Trump's allies were using the levers of power, manipulating them to fraudulently claim the election was rigged and block, what has been a wonderful tradition in our democracy, and that's the peaceful transfer of power.
So, Carol, what we had been getting all along sort of publicly was that the DOJ was working their way up, right? They were going to start with Michael and get their way all the way up to Tony Soprano. Do you think that what we're finding out today in this breaking news, is it a result of prosecuting the low-level people, the Ali Alexanders, the actual insurrectionists on the ground? Is that what led to this? Or do you think that this investigation and calling for phone records was already something that was going to occur regardless?
I think there are two tracks here, and it's such a good question that you ask, because this is not your typical Department of Justice investigation from what my colleagues and I have been able to discern. It didn't start with Michael and move up to Mr. Corleone. I make that joke, but that is the typical drug cartel investigation. That is the typical major white-collar conspiracy investigation or corporate and public corruption investigation. And that doesn't appear the case here. The two tracks were the Department of Justice put all of their energies early on in the days after January 6th into investigating and prosecuting the rioters that stormed the beaches at Normandy, right? Stormed the Capitol. But it was only later that they began really looking at the conspiracy that many critics of the Department of Justice say they feel happened right in front of their face. And that was President Trump and his allies perpetrating a fraudulent agreement, in their view, I stress in their view, to push the big lie, to try to block Vice President Pence from certifying the election. I do not have any doubt that Merrick Garland believes they are rolling uphill. And maybe there is a progression that will get to that stage. But right now, it's a much more broader net that is trying to gather everything about Team Trump and piece together what potential crimes may have occurred, including, the most serious one, seditious conspiracy to obstruct a government proceeding, and that is the certification of the election, the certification of the victory of Joe Biden.
Well, look, if they're rolling it up that hill, hopefully they'll be running it up that hill sometime soon, because this is the kind of breaking news that leads people to believe that a prosecution should be imminent. Paul Butler and Carol Leonnig, thank you so much for joining us tonight on The ReidOut.